Appalachian Corruption, a Hartline Production. You're listening to stories from the heart of Appalachia, where the mountains remember, the past still breathes, and every tale carries a little truth if you know how to listen. I'm John Hart. Pull up a chair. There's a word that echoes through the hills more than folks like to admit. Corruption. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it wears a badge. Sometimes it sits in a church pew. And sometimes it hides behind a handshake. This story takes us back to the 1930s. Coal country, courthouse steps, and a town where power meant everything. The miners worked themselves to the bone. The company owned the houses, the stores, the schools, the sheriff, and the judge. And when payday came, the money went right back into the company's pocket. Folks whispered about missing funds, about land deeds that changed hands overnight, about widows losing their homes while the mayor built himself a new one. But nobody spoke too loud, because in those days, speaking up could cost you your job or your life. There was a man named Sheriff Amos Clay. Big man, big voice, big promises. He said he was for the people, said he'd clean up the county. But behind closed doors, he was taking bribes from the local company and turning a blind eye to the violence in the camps. The miners called him the company's lawman. He'd show up when the bosses needed muscle, but disappear when a miner got beat for organizing. One night a miner named Eli Turner came to town with proof. Ledgers, letters, names. He handed them to the local paper, and by morning, the paper's office had burned to the ground. Eli disappeared. Sheriff Clay got reelected, and the company kept digging. That's corruption in Appalachia. Not just money changing hands, but truth getting buried deeper than coal. Now every town's got a preacher, and this one, it was Reverend Samuel Pike. He preached about sin, salvation, and the dangers of pride. But when folks asked him to speak out against the company, he said, "The Lord will handle it." The Lord didn't handle it. The company did. They paid for a new church roof, a fresh coat of paint, and a shiny brass bell. And Reverend Pike stopped preaching about greed. That's how corruption works here. Not always with threats, sometimes with gifts. Then there was Martha Lee, a widow whose husband died in the mines. She had a small patch of land, nothing fancy, just enough for a garden and a few chickens. But that land sat right on top of a coal seam. The company wanted it. She refused to sell. A week later, the tax assessor came knocking, said she owed back taxes she had never heard of. By the end of the month, the land was gone, signed over to a man who worked for Sheriff Clay. Martha packed her things and moved in with her sister. She never saw that garden again. Years later, a young reporter named Clara Jennings came to town. She was from Richmond, educated, sharp and stubborn. She started digging into the old records, asking questions nobody wanted to answer. She found the burned newspaper files, the missing deeds, and the sheriff's name on half the property transfers in the county. When she tried to publish her story, the editor told her, "You're not from here. You don't understand." But she did understand. She understood that corruption doesn't just live in the courthouse. It lives in the silence of the people who know better. Clara left town, but her notes survived, and years later they helped expose the company's control over half the county's land. Now I've seen corruption in a lot of forms. Sometimes it's a man lying to save his own skin. Sometimes it's a system built to keep folks poor. And sometimes it's just silence. The kind that lets wrong keep happening because nobody wants to lose what little they've got. But here's the thing, Appalachia's not blind. We see it. We feel it, and we remember. The mountains don't forget who took from them. They don't forget who lied. And they sure don't forget who stood up and paid the price. Eli Turner, Martha Lee, Clara Jennings, names that never made the papers, but they are written in the dirt, in the coal dust, in the fog that rolls through these hills every morning. That's the kind of corruption that doesn't just steal money, it steals hope. And hope's the hardest thing to